Welcome to the Spearhead Podcast. Today we're talking to Daniel Koenig, a professional kiteboarder. I reached out to Daniel in the hopes that we could expose more people to the sport of kiteboarding. There's something truly magical about being out there in the wind and the water. If you'd like to contact him after, his website and Instagram are in the description. Hey Daniel, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. I was thinking for this we could start by talking about so the Olympics are coming up with kiteboarding for the first time ever. A lot of people are going to be, trying to find out what kiteboarding is and where it came from. Could we go back to the beginning of the sport and then work our way all the way up to how this is now an Olympic sport?
Yeah, so it basically started from windsurfers. That was huge back in like the 80s, late 80s and stuff like that, even earlier. And then in Maui, I guess somebody figured out that you could ride on a board with a kite, and that would give you a lot more, I guess, wind range, and you just had more options. You could have more power generating from a kite just because you can move it. So someone was dumb enough to try it, and it kind of worked. So I guess it started blowing up from there, and it's evolved from there to what it is now today. And yeah, obviously it's getting into the Olympics now as far as a race aspect of the sport goes for with hydrofoils. So that's very exciting. Yeah.
Okay. And the original kites they filled with air? Or is that how it works? Like not a leading edge, but it was a different kind of kite than a lot of
Yeah.
the jumpers use. What's the difference there?
Yeah, so they still make those kites. So there's the two main styles, like a ram air style kite. So that's a two layer. It's pretty much like a same kind of construction as like a paraglider or something. It's two layers of fabric with cells with cells in between. So as the air goes inside the cells, it inflates it and gives it its rigidity. And then they need a lot of little bridles to hold the structure of the kite. So those still exist. They use them a lot still for land kiting and snow kiting, and then also with racing, the certain foil kites or ram air style kites are pretty optimal for racing. They go upwind very well. They're very fast flying kites, so it's kind of the uh, ideal kite to use for when you're racing. You can use obviously the inflatable kites as well too. Uh, I think they just don't kind of go upwind as aggressively in the optimal conditions as like those foil kites. So that's what you'll see all the racers using in the Olympics, and uh, you know, going from there. But you'll see guys using whatever inflatables. But yeah, so the other kite is the standard kite is the inflatable kite. So it's got a leading edge. You inflate it. The tubes give it its rigidity. So if you crash on the water, it's easy to relaunch it and keep it going.
Okay. So on water, the foil one, or sorry, the non-inflatable one
Yeah, the
is
ram air.
predominantly ram air's racing, whereas leading edge is more jumping, and that sort of stuff.
Not necessarily. Like those ram air kites also jump super well,
Oh,
and they're really floaty kites. They actually have a lot more float than a leading edge kite in optimal conditions. So you will see some of these guys on Instagram. There's a guy from the Netherlands. He's doing some crazy jumps, and he's just floating for like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and it just holds you up for forever. And with a foil, you can edge that kite that much harder and pop it up and get way more of a floatier jump too. So it's not that those are ideal for it, but it's just like you can really like jump high with those as well too. Obviously, you can still jump high with leading edge kite, but um, yeah, it's just more of you know a different style, really, like whatever your preference is. Like if these racers are really going hard for like being the fastest racer you can be, then you need the best gear. So you need the special carbon foils, the boards. You need to have like the latest greatest race kite basically to compete, because it is very gear sensitive, where you need to have the proper gear for it to be competitive. Not to say that that's going to be a game changer, because everyone's going to be on the same gear, especially in the Olympics. They'll have a standard kite that everyone, so it'll even the playing field. But that's the ultimate setup basically for that scenario.
Okay. And then for boards, I think there's twin tip, surf. Can you go through that a bit? Are the surfboards that when people kite surf, is that the same as a regular surfboard or is it a bit different?
It's a little bit slightly different. It's very similar. People could use surfboards, but some of them have a bit more rocker, so like the sort of banana shape to the board, or they're made out of heavier materials, or sometimes lighter materials. Like a kite surfboard generally seems to be in usually a little bit lighter construction, unless it's like a freestyle kite surfboard. So they have like it's a surfboard, but the nose is cut off, and it's basically it has a better chance of staying again on your feet when you push it up against the wind. So there's different styles there. Like there's just wave riding kite surfboards. There's freestyle surfboards where you jump with them and do tricks and stuff and strapless airs. Um, Lots of different variation.
Okay. And tell me more a bit about your story. You're sponsored by Core.
Yeah,
Um,
so I ride for Core, and then obviously our shop here, Blues Kiteboarding. Me and my brother, my dad own it, and we mainly sell, we sell, we repair product, and we teach it as well a bit. We started from our dad. He started windsurf. He was a windsurfer before, just like most of the kiters now, and I think kind of got into kiting for the same thing. They saw it, I think, in the gorge or something on one of their yearly summer trips, and from there they kind of got their first kite. And back then the gear was a little bit more sketch than what it is right now, but they made it work and they learned how to do it. And then they kind of had buddies that slowly started getting into it. And then they started coming out with like proper water kites and leading edge inflatable kites that could kind of operate properly on the water. And they kind of started, they were starting to get more and more demand, so that my dad figured, oh, I will start a store. And at that point, me and my brother were still pretty young. So, I mean, I got into it when I was like 12, started flying little trainer kites. I started on the water when I was, I think, 14. And that was when they had inflatable kites, but they were still C-shaped kites. And that was right when like the first bow style kite came out. And that kind of totally changed the game for me, because like I just, I was just starting to get the hang of it on a sea kite, but I was so small. When I'd crash the kite, it was really hard for me to relaunch it. I didn't have enough size to like resist the kite in the water and get it up. And had a lot of trouble with that when I was small. But then that first bow kite came out. I think it was a Cabrina crossbow, and I got on that, and it was like a game changer. Like a light switch just went off. Like it was so much easier to control. They depowered way more. They relaunched so much easier. And then from there, it just kind of really stuck. And then yeah, we've been growing the kite community here in Winnipeg. We sell all across Canada, obviously too. But Winnipeg has definitely been growing a lot. We have pretty good lakes here, a lot of close locations with lots of access. So we're pretty privileged here for sure. We have a lot of good kite spots here, and they're easy to get to, and we're not really overly restricted on access, and it's nice.
some of the nicest beaches I've ever seen are very close to you there.
Yeah, we have some nice spots. I mean, I've been around the world, and I mean, they're definitely Winnipeg is it's kind of a hidden gem. I think we have lots of wind and clean beaches, lots of space, lots of big beaches. As long as the lake levels aren't too high. Like last year, the flooding was really quite harsh, so the lake was actually quite high. It was actually a little bit difficult to kite on the lake, or actually not to kite, but to find a launch spot. So that was a bit tricky, but I think it's going to go back to normal this year.
Okay. So there's in Canada, there's Squamish,
Hmm.
Winnipeg, somewhere on Vancouver Island as well, I think.
Like
I don't
places
remember
to
the name.
kite.
Yeah, places to kite.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's every province has some spots. I mean, yeah, Vancouver's got obviously like your BCS Squamish, and you can go down the coast, you can go to the island, go to Nitnat.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's a really sick spot. But yeah, you can go anywhere. Like, there's a lot of places there, unique spots. If you just have to have access sometimes, but Alberta has like a couple spots that are really good. Saskatchewan as well. Winnipeg, we obviously have two really big lakes, so it's kind of nice for us because our drive to get to those lakes is like 30 minutes, and you can be to the first kite spot, which is kind of nice. But any wind direction, you can basically drive within an hour and get to pretty nice conditions. Going more east, Ontario, you kind of have the Great Lakes, so there's some good spots there. Again, you're spaced out a bit more, so it's a little trickier to get out to, but it's still all doable. And like now that there's like the wing foiling, that's opened up a lot of these smaller remote lakes too that have really a lot of cabin people, a lot of cabin owners and vacationers, they can kind of hit up these really small gusty lakes that would be really tough for a kiter or a new kiter. Winging really is going to open that up now for them. So it's just another style from the umbrella of wind sports.
Okay. Can you describe the wing a little more?
Yeah, so a wing is it's pretty much just like a kite without the bar and line. So you hang on to it and you can generate power. It's almost like it's in between, kind of an in between, a cross between kiteboarding and windsurfing. Like you don't need to have like the boom and everything and the mast like a windsurfer, but don't have the lines like a kite. So you hold onto this sail, there's kite with handles or bars, and you can generate power from just controlling the pitch, kind of like windsurfing. Like you can power it up or depower it. And then it wasn't really a big thing, but with the advancements now with foils and hydrofoils, that pretty much opened up this sport to like whole new possibilities now, where you can basically tow yourself upwind and catch a little swell or a little like waves, wind swell, and just ride a little roller and disengage the wing fully and surf foil basically all the way downwind, and then tack back up and then do it again, and not have to worry about, like, you can do it with a kite, but the problem with a kite is that you always have to keep an eye on the kite, because there has to be some tension in a kite when you're going downwind so fast, so the kite might fall to the sky. So you have to kind of be on it, so you're never fully disengaged 100%. But with a wing, you basically just let go with the backhand and it just floats there disengaged 100%, and then you can fully foil directly into the wind and downwind, and not have to worry about a kite collapsing out of the sky and lines getting tangled and everything. So that's really opened up a huge, you have a higher volume board, like quite a big board. So like, you know, anywhere from like a 60-liter board to a 110-liter board. So they can be like 5'9", 5'8" boards. So they're a little bit bigger boards, but they give you that volume so you can float and basically just jump on your board, paddle out to where the wind is in like a remote lake, and then engage the wing and start ripping. And then when you're done, you can, like, if you get tired, that's a nice thing. Like on a remote lake, for example, if you crash a kite, well, the gusts and everything are really quite difficult to sometimes to relaunch the kite, or you're sort of just floating there stranded. But with a wingboard, if you kind of are tired or something happens, you're attached to this huge board, you just float on it, chill out there, the wing's not pulling you or anything, you can just paddle it back to shore, or just, okay, I'm ready, and then grab it and engage and go back to where you started from. So I think the safety aspect of it is pretty appealing to some people who think, oh, kiting, I don't really want to deal with lines and my lake isn't ideal for it. This is kind of starting to get some of those people into it. And I think also in the snow is a huge thing people don't realize. Like, it's pretty simple. With basically, you just need a wing and you can get your downhill skis or a snowboard, and just in basically 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I can kind of have somebody just sort of riding already back and forth, and like, oh, you're not going to get thrown, you're not going to hurt yourself, you're going to start having fun almost right away. Where kiting, you can still have fun. Obviously, it is a lot of fun, but there's more of a learning curve to it, where you have to really watch a student or watch a person that's new, and, okay, don't do this, like, don't send the kite too hard, you can't get thrown. There's always that potential to get kind of pulled and thrown. So yeah, it's just another style. It's not going to take over one's not going to take over the other. It's just like another style. Like, I'm very heavily into the foiling game right now. So and that's cut like kite foiling, wing foiling. Like it's just a whole nother addiction now for me. That's just really opened up like the possibilities of what you can do on each, and it's like a whole new challenge. So it really keeps like the thrill and the excitement up there right now. So it's a lot of
Cool.
fun for sure. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. So back to some spots. There's, I think you mentioned the gorge. In the States, Hatteras, I don't know if I pronounced that right,
Yeah.
is pretty big.
Yeah. Cape Hatteras is huge. We just got back from a trip there.
Okay.
It's got basically like a sandbar 100 miles out from the ocean off the coast of off the coast of the states there, North Carolina. So that has like a really nice flat water side, and then on the other side is obviously the wave side, so you can hit waves or do flat water or whatever. It's a super good like water sports place. We go there every year for about 2 weeks. So we have a trip that we kind of set up with friends, and we rent a couple houses to go down there for 2 weeks and basically get as much water time as we can. It's awesome. We drive down there from Winnipeg, so that's a long ass drive, but it's usually worth it. We can bring all of our gear, and then everything's with us. So we just load up and go last 2 weeks of April, usually every time.
Cool. All right. So back to your story. You're sponsored by Core. You've got the store. You've competed in, I know, Kite Clash here in Squamish.
Hmm.
What else have you done?
Um, I was like, so I'm a little bit, I'm not so much into the competing scene anymore.
Oh, okay.
I just like to do it for fun now. I mean, I'm kind of getting to the point now where it's, I just like to go out and ride and have fun and, teach lessons. I got a couple things going on now here in the city that it's a little bit more time consuming, where I don't have the time to train as much as I'd like to anymore. But I did back when I was competing. I did the Mexican Nationals one year. I won that.
Nice.
I did a couple events in Hood River. They had some Bridge of the Gods. They had King of the Great Lakes in Michigan. We've done that event. So there's a couple really nice ones. Kite Clash was always nice because there was a nice, it was a good Canadian event and a super awesome spot. And a lot of people we know are from there. We have a lot of clients from there. So that was always a really fun one with COVID. And then now that they changed the access a little bit to the Squamish, I guess it's kind of difficult to run that competition right now. So I think they're still working on the details on maybe bringing it back, but that would be nice to just, as a Canadian competition, it would be, I would still go and compete in that just to do it, and always nice to go down there. But lately there hasn't been too much for competitions, and I mean I'm pretty busy with work now and running the shops here and teaching, so that a lot of my time is in the summers consumed by that, and then I usually go on holidays in the winter, go to Cape Town or um,
Okay.
a couple different spots, Mexico, and spend my time there just relaxing and kiting and winging and
I've
checking out new
heard
spots.
I've heard Cape Town is on another level.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. It's by far my favorite spot to go to. Not just for like water sports or kiteboarding or wing sports. It's like anything you want to do there. It's the hiking's incredible. The surfing is epic. I started kind of getting a little bit into paragliding, so I see myself probably getting more into that. So of course, there it's just epic, epic mountain scenes. So for paragliding, yeah, I might get into that too. But anything, yeah, it's so beautiful, the landscape there. Go and check out different places. The food's incredible. It's relatively affordable to travel. The flight's a little expensive, but the entire food, you can rent pretty nice places like right near the beach in the main area that you see most of the videos from, by like Dolphin Beach or Kite Beach or whatever. Um, Pretty reasonable, and you get a pretty sweet little pad there with a friend or two, and yeah, you surf when it's not windy, or you go hike, and then you go kiting or winging when it's windy, or like You can paraglide, you can go, hiking, whatever you want to do there. There's so much to see there. It's really amazing country.
Awesome. All right. Just back to Boost. What do you sell? Like, let's go through there's pump, kite, lines,
Hmm.
harness. Talk me through like the whole sort of setup, let's say for kiting.
Yeah, well, whatever wind junkie needs, we got usually. So I mean, you want to obviously have, depending on what someone's budget is, you need a kite, a bar, and lines. So usually you buy everything is now separate because you can mix and match. Like you don't necessarily need to have a bar for every single kite now. So you can buy, one, two, three kites with a bar. One bar will run it all. You need a pump. You need wetsuit. Usually, especially here, like 90% of the sessions, you need a wetsuit here in Manitoba, but some other places you might just need a shorty, but or nothing. It just depends on where you are. But yeah, we usually set people up with wetsuits. Now that it's early springtime, we have lots of water wear as far as like booties go, cold weather gear. So like booties, mitts, neoprene beanies or hoods, like sweaters. You can get neoprene sweaters, anything to help keep you warm. We spend a lot of time making sure people are set up with uh, like the proper equipment so that they're warm. Because if you're not warm, you're basically not learning out there. You're just focusing on like trying to like stay warm and stop shivering. So we try to make sure that, or we try to tell people like honestly, like a wetsuit is probably one of the most important pieces you can buy at the beginning, and it's good to get a good one. Nowadays the materials are so good that you can get a really nice wetsuit and it lasts you quite a while. And the nice thing with like kiteboarding wetsuits is that they're very like cross sport usable. So if you like surf or if you do a bit of swimming, you're obviously not going to go do a laps with a 453 wetsuit, but if you're going to go surf or something, they're very mobile and flexible suits that you can actually do multiple sports with. So it's a good investment. If you like do boating or anything or kayaking stuff like that, like it's nice to have a good wetsuit as well, especially in Manitoba. But spend the money on a good suit. We usually recommend, and from there, you're not going to have to worry about being cold or you know not being able to go out, and it opens up your season so much more if you're not just limited to like the 2 summer months because it's the only time it's warm enough. If you can open up the season, pretty much a good wetsuit now, they're so sealed that you don't even feel water coming into them when they're brand new. And we're basically going on the water now and you're not cold. Like your hands and feet might start getting a bit cold, but then you use gloves and boots at this point. But that's a very small window for those. But yeah, a good wetsuit is everything, honestly, now. So that, and then we usually, like, if you're a new kiter, you usually start by twin tipping, and then once you start kiting, then you sort of branch out to whatever sort of aspect of the sport you like. So if you want to get into hydrofoiling with a kite, later you get a hydrofoil or whatever, surfboard. Um, and from there, yeah, you just kind of build your quiver, really. Like if you depending on someone's budget, usually most people end up with like 2 or 3 kites by the end of like, but once they're fully set up. But I mean, if your budget allows, you can get 2 kites to get going. It's only going to open up your wind range that much more because it's one thing to like miss a day when it's not windy enough, but then it's also really crappy if you miss a day when it's just too windy, right? Like you want to kite when there's a lot of wind, but you have to kind of make sure you're at the level where you're comfortable in those high winds and know how to control the kite. And it can be one of the best sessions ever. It's just you gotta be safe and take things slow and not let excitement take over. And then you make a mistake and you're in the trees, right? So yeah, so those are usually the main things: kite, bar, lines, board, harness as well. So harnesses you can get between basically two main types: a seat harness or a waist harness. 90% of people end up with a waist harness because they fit over your things a little better, over your wetsuit, and a little easier to take on and off. They look cooler, I guess. But some people, if they have back issues or they have issues with harnesses riding up, you can get more of a seat style harness that wraps around your legs and keeps everything low and not from riding up and making things uncomfortable. But um, there's different types of harnesses as far as like there's the new hard shell harnesses. Those are really kind of a rigid structure now that doesn't deform when you're really loaded up and squeeze on your body differently. So that's kind of the new trend. You'll see a lot of guys using hard shells. Of course, they're more expensive, but they're uh, they're awesome. They're a game changer for sure, and they're worth the money whether you afford it now and buy it right away, or you just get a little bit cheaper harness at the beginning, learn with it, and then upgrade to a hard shell. Usually, most people will end up with that later down the road, anyways.
Cool. All right. What's your website?
So yeah, we have our website here, www.boostkiteboarding.com, or .ca I think works too. But yeah, boostkiteboarding.com. And we have a whole online shop where you can, see what we have in stock. Um, we mainly stock like the core brand for kites, although we are dabbling more with North Kites now. But we have access to most of the main brands, so Cabrina, Ozone, whatever. We can usually get something if you want something specific. We can see what's available and order it in for you in a pretty relatively quick time, and at still a very competitive pricing. So that's, yeah, our whole online shop's connected to that. So you can buy right online, or you can give us a call at the shop, 204-772-6678, or drop us an email at info@boostkiteboarding.com with any inquiries, and we can answer all your questions and see what's available and set you up with whatever you need. So most of the waterwear we stock with is Mystic, is a big brand for us for the wetsuits and the harnesses and all the accessories, travel bags, all that kind of stuff. But same thing, we can get something. If someone wants something special, we usually can find something and get it pretty quick for someone.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me, man.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye bye.